Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Hoosier Life with Josh and Michael. That's Josh on the other end. Obviously, I'm Michael. We're glad to be back for another week's edition. We had to take the week off. Josh and I had quite a busy week, so we're happy to be here on a Saturday. The point is, we're getting to you. We got a lot to talk about. There were some big moves in the NBA draft. There was some big IU news over the week. Getting undrafted and signed, and guys getting moved. It was crazy. We're going to cover it all. Josh, are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's get it going.
All right, let's get right to it. So let's lead it off with our opening segment. We got to talk Bloomington. It's been a while. We're almost halfway through with the summer, which means we're halfway back to Bloomington. And a big thing going on right now at IU is new student orientation. And that was kind of our first, feel for lack of a better term, of the campus, of what life is going to be like as a student. You sign up for your classes. You get you spend 48 hours basically on campus. So Josh, I now ask you, what was kind of your most fond memory, your most memorable event of new student orientation last summer?
I think it was just being in Bloomington without all the hustle and bustle of the school year. Because, when you're there during the school year, it's packed. Obviously, there's 40,000 people on campus. But when you're there during the summer, it's maybe a couple thousand people that are in Bloomington. Because, when it's not during the school year, Bloomington isn't a huge city. It's just a small little town. It's a college town. So just kind of being there, without a lot of people there was pretty cool. But also my orientation was a little weird because all these people, they were all from Chicago or Indiana, and I was this lone guy out from Seattle. I was the only one in my group who had never been to Assembly Hall, so it was a little weird, a little shell shock, but we got through the week okay, or a couple days okay.
That is a little bit of a shell shock, and it's funny you say that because there were a couple people in my group that I met there from Indiana, from the Chicagoland area, but I met more people outside of Illinois and Indiana. I met more people from California than any other state, and I think we had about 5 people on my floor this year out of 45, 46, 47 kids from California, and over half were from Indiana. There were a handful from Illinois, but the next highest was California, and I find that constant throughout IU. I met a lot of kids from that state, and I just think that's very interesting that there are so many people from California coming to Bloomington. There's nothing wrong with it. Bloomington's is heaven on earth, but it came as a shock to me right away, and it's been pretty consistent ever since, meeting kids from California. But I'd say my most fond memory was kind of being told all the traditions of IU. I hadn't really gotten a feel for what the culture was like and what the attitude was like in Bloomington and surrounding IU and stuff. And it's very tradition oriented, I would say. There's a lot going on pretty much in every aspect of life in Bloomington. And, just the Showalter Fountain and the stories and legends of the fish and Bobby Knight and all that stuff. It felt great to just to be a part of it and be introduced to all the legends behind IU and the history of IU. And it was a good intro to what the next 4 years were going to be like.
Yeah, no doubt. And to your point with people coming from California, you got Kelly, one of the best business schools in the country, and then you got the media school, brand new media school that is going to be off the charts this upcoming school year and in the future. I saw a couple tweets from Jeremy Gray, who got to tour it. He is pumped about it. He said it was awesome. I'm pumped about it. I got a couple of classes in Franklin Hall next year, so a lot of things looking good for this upcoming year in Bloomington.
Yeah, Franklin Hall, right at the sample gates, is going to be absolutely stunning. The media school is going to be stunning. It's going to be a piece of art. I can't wait to get involved, Josh. I know you just said you can't wait to get involved. No one can wait to get involved, but it's a couple months away before we set foot in there for classes, and it's going to be unbelievable. And we'll be sure to, we'll tweet out some pictures of it once we get back down there and whatnot. And it's going to be a great time, and we can't wait to get back. But we got to move on. We got to talk NBA draft. There was a lot that happened. Josh, let's quickly run through this, and then we'll give our analysis. A winning team, a losing team, and a sleeper pick. Let's have you start off.
My winning team is going to be the San Antonio Spurs. They got this kind of ties in with my sleeper pick. They got an absolute gem in DeJounte Murray. He's from Washington, so no bias from being out here, but this guy was a projected lottery pick, and he fell all the way almost out of the first round before the Spurs nabbed him at 28, I believe. This is a fantastic pickup. He is He can get it. He can get it into the lane. He's still working on his jump shot a little bit, but he can shoot the basketball. He's a kind of a point guard, shooting guard type. He's really good, and he's going to be fantastic down there in San Antonio. He's a new young star down there with kind of Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili kind of moving out of the scene, and you got Kawhi Leonard, and you got LaMarcus Aldridge. Now you got DeJounte Murray, another great pickup for this team. He's going to be great down there. So the Spurs, my winning team. My losing team is the Magic. I don't know what they were doing in trading Victor Oladipo, Domantas Sabonis, and Ersan Ilyasova for Serge Ibaka. I mean, Serge Ibaka is great. He's a good player, but I feel like that is way too much or way too much that they gave up to just get that one player. I don't think Serge Ibaka was going to get you into the second round of the playoffs, but he might be able to get you into that first round depending on what they do with some other moves. And then my what is it? Sleeper pick. Kay Felder of the now Cleveland Cavaliers. I guess LeBron James really wanted this guy, and they went out and got him. He's a point guard, got drafted late in the second round. Maybe took a spot of Yogi Ferrell in the draft, but Kay Felder is a great player. He showed up against Michigan State. He showed up against Washington. He showed up in the tournament. Didn't show up in the tournament, but this guy is a solid point guard. He could have a very good NBA career, I think, moving forward.
I agree with you, and I think that's a great pick for Cleveland because this guy can score at will, basically. He's undersized. He's 5'9", like you said. He's shorter than you and I, but, I mean, the guy can score, and he's got a killer's mentality, so I think that's a great pick for Cleveland. And I would argue, going back to your Yogi Ferrell point, that Yogi's a better point guard than Kay Felder. I think he's better suited for the NBA. But Cleveland needed a scorer like Kay Felder, and I think the way that Felder approaches the game and the way that he ran that Oakland team, which is a magical team year in and year out, the way he fit into that team and the way he ran that team, he did it so well and he scored so well given all the weapons around him against these big-time teams like Michigan State that I think that's what propelled him over Yogi Ferrell in the draft. But there's still a home for Yogi. We're going to talk about that in a second. My team that won the draft is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think with Tom Thibodeau now as their head coach, Chris Dunn fell right in their lap. I think that wasn't a steal. That was just a gift from above. I don't even know how that happened. But Chris Dunn, Minnesota, it's just huge. This guy, I think he's the next great point guard in this league. We've seen Derrick Rose. He came and went. We've seen Russell Westbrook. We've seen Steph Curry, John Wall, all those guys. I'm not going to say that he's the next Steph Curry or Russell Westbrook. I think he's more of a John Wall type player, but he is the next great point guard in this league. I think Minnesota scored big time with him. He could play shooting guard. He could do it all. He can score at will. I think he's a fantastic pick. He's a great blend of Rubio, who's a pass-first point guard. They've got Towns. They've got Wiggins. They've got Levine. I think they should go get Joakim Noah in free agency. Right there, I'm going to say it right now. I think they're a 6th seed in the playoffs next year. I think they're ready. They've got the coach. If they blend well, I think the sky's the limit for this team going forward. My losing team is the Bucks. Thon Maker at number 10, I don't get it. I just don't get it. We don't have a big enough sample size on Thon Maker. We don't really know how he plays the game, because he doesn't really play, the Jamal Murrays and the Ben Simmons and the Brandon Ingrams of the world. No one's really seen exactly what he can offer at the highest level. And some scouts and GMs came forward on draft day and said they weren't sure about his age. They speculate he could be between 21 and 23 and not 19 like he claims to be. I'm not going to speculate on that. I don't know what they know. That's certainly a question mark if that comes up for any player, whether that be Ben Simmons, Thon Maker, or Mr. Irrelevant. That's a concern. So that on the court, I'm not sold on him yet. He's a little too hybrid-y all over the place for me for a 7-1 guy. I think it takes a certain athlete to play that type of game, and I don't think he's that guy. Bucks lost the draft for me. My sleeper pick, Boston Celtics took Ben Bentel in the 2nd round. He's a power forward with a jump shot. He can hit the boards incredibly well, and he's a scorer. And the only reason he didn't go higher is because his teammate over at Providence, Chris Dunn, was the man of that team. I also like Bryce Johnson to the Clippers. I think he fits that system perfectly, and he's going to blend well with that offense. And they could contend next year for the Western Conference Finals. Probably not, but if healthy, I like that pick. I think he blends in well.
Yeah, Bentel is a very good pick. So is Bryce Johnson. But I was kind of interested to see what happened with the trades or maybe the non-trades that went down. I know you have something to say on Jimmy Butler coming up in a little bit, but I was surprised that there was so much talk and then these teams just decided not to do anything. I mean, I guess we've kind of seen that in the past, but some of these teams just got cold feet when it came down to it, it looks like, because there was so much talk and so many reports of, the Bulls and the Wolves are that rhymes. The Bulls and the Wolves are close on a deal for Jimmy Butler, which would have been a huge trade that went down on draft night, but that never happens. And Jimmy Butler's still a Bull right now. And then the Celtics, they were also thinking about getting up to that third pick. They never did it. So I mean, there was a lot going on there, and nothing really came of it.
Man, there was a lot going on, and at the same time, nothing happened. So that's great analysis, and I'm going to get into that Jimmy Butler thing in a second. But first, I have to ask you this, because it's big news for this show. It's big news for IU. It's big news for the NBA. Victor Oladipo to the Thunder. Is that enough, do you think, to keep Kevin Durant around? Because I saw a report from, I think, Sporting News today that said that he is interested in going to the Warriors. So do you think Vic Oladipo to the Thunder is enough to keep Kevin Durant?
I don't think it comes down just to Victor Oladipo coming to OKC. I think he's going to look at the broader picture. I think he has interviews set up with the Warriors. I think I saw the Spurs and the Thunder as well, and I'm sure there's going to be a couple other teams that try to get on the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. But, I mean, he's a great piece to add to that team. He'll probably slot in at the two-guard position, and this is going to be a very big Thunder team. We're probably going to have Cantor in the starting lineup. You're going to have Steven Adams in the starting lineup now with no Serge Ibaka. And then obviously Russell Westbrook, Victor Oladipo, and then they're waiting on that last piece to see if Kevin Durant will stay. I said it last week or 2 weeks ago. I'm just not sure where he's going to land. It's just been so it hasn't been so black and white of where he's going to end up, and there's so many possibilities. If he goes to the Warriors, how are they going to work that out? They'll have to probably shift some salary around there, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I do think if he does come back to OKC, this is going to be an NBA Finals team. I think they're going to make the NBA Finals. The Warriors are good, but with Victor Oladipo on the team, that's just another playmaker. They got some other good bench players now with Sabonis there, Ersan Ilyasova even, and then they got the rest of the guys that were there last year. So it's a pretty good team. If Kevin Durant stays, I think they're in the finals.
I agree with you, and I've been on the record that Kevin Durant would be out of his mind to leave. With this addition, you can only imagine how I feel. I think it's in his best interest and the Warriors' best interest to keep him out of Oakland. I think if you're the Warriors, you just won 73 games, and the only reason you didn't win the finals is because your emotional leader got suspended and your big man got hurt in that same game. So they're essentially 10 seconds away from winning the series in 5 games. If Bogut doesn't get hurt and Draymond doesn't get suspended, I think that series is over in 5 and Cleveland doesn't come back, because they only came back because, I'm not going to speculate this and start a whole argument, but when you look at it, they came back by attacking the rim when Bogut and Draymond Green didn't play, and then when Bogut got hurt, that was it. They attacked the rim, and that's how they won the series. So if you're Golden State, you don't touch your team. I don't think they do anything. They should not do anything, because they're built to win a title right now. They keep everyone, add a shooter here or there, and drop Barnes. If you don't want to pay him that money, that's fine. They can still win a title. If I'm Kevin Durant, the Thunder, to me, right now are the deepest team in the league if Kevin Durant stays. You've got Ilyasova. You've got Cantor and Adams in the starting lineup. Those guys are both proven starters now. I think Kevin Durant would just be absolutely out of it. Dion Waiters, too, and Anthony Morrow, I think he was great. And Andre Robertson was great. I think the Thunder were great this year. They were 40 seconds away from going to the finals, beating the Warriors in 5. Again, Victor Oladipo and Russell Westbrook could be the most athletic backcourt that the NBA has ever seen. And if that's not enough for Kevin Durant to stay, then he should look back and combine that with what they did last year. I won't say anything else. He would be out of his mind to go anywhere but Oklahoma City.
No, I mean, those are great points right there, because this team was, I mean, you said it, they were right there. They probably should have been in the finals this year. They just couldn't quite close the door. And I mean, with now Victor Oladipo coming onto this team is built. They're built to make the championship if Kevin Durant stays. And that's a big if right now, because I feel like there's a lot of people in his ear saying, "Oh, if you go to the Warriors, that's a guaranteed championship right there." But I don't know. If you stay with the Thunder, that could also be a guaranteed at least trip to the championship. So there's so many factors that'll factor into this, but it's going to be interesting to see what plays out with this saga.
Absolutely. And I don't even think Kevin Durant to the Warriors would be beneficial to Golden State. If you think about it, Steph and Clay and Draymond, basically that's their whole offense. And then if there's someone else open for three, they take that shot. If you sign Kevin Durant, he's on an Oklahoma City team where he takes 30 shots a game. That means you're taking away 10 shots from Steph, Clay, and Draymond out of the gates. If you limit Klay Thompson offensively, his value is chopped at least in half. Steph Curry's value is decreased a significant amount. Draymond Green's value is decreased slightly less than those guys just because if he can do everything. But his value is even decreased. And Klay Thompson is a guy that can score 40 points on any given night. You throw in Kevin Durant, you'd be lucky to get 20 out of him. And I think his value is completely – it's almost irrelevant now. Steph Curry obviously will probably still be the leader of that team. They'll be co-leaders, but Klay Thompson will drift completely into the distance. He's going to want to walk out if they don't succeed. And then they've screwed pretty much what they've built. They stole Klay Thompson in the draft. They built Steph Curry into a stud. They stole Draymond Green. What they've built, they've done themselves. They've drafted these guys. They've built them up to what they are. To sign Kevin Durant would be to throw that all out the window, completely disregard the work that they did to get here, and screw themselves over from a championship. I truly believe that. You cannot mess with chemistry. That is the most underrated thing in a franchise that I think is relevant right now in the NBA. You cannot mess with chemistry. These guys have it. If I'm Golden State, I'm not touching my lineup. I can't do it.
No, I mean, that's a great point right there because, I mean, Kevin Durant's going to need his 30 points, 25 points a game, and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson probably are not going to want to shoot any less than they are right now because they're mostly going in. So, I mean, it's if he does go there will be a power struggle, and that's why I think going to OKC might be Kevin Durant's best bet because you have everything in place. You're the superstar on that team. I don't care about Russell Westbrook. You're the superstar on that team. You've won an MVP. Russell Westbrook hasn't. Steph Curry's won 2, and now you're going to go up there and try to take that away from him, basically, because you're going to be taking shots and points away from him. It'll be interesting to see if he does go there, what kind of happens with Steve Kerr and how he kind of manages that. But I think going to OKC right now is his best bet.
And that whole too much power thing is a great point. You look at the Lakers when they had Steve Nash and Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard has always been that guy. Steve Nash, aside from him and Amari Stoudemire, he's always been that guy on his team. Kobe Bryant, for as long as he will live, no matter what he does, will always be that guy. Kevin Durant was that guy. Russell Westbrook, they're both that guy. Steph Curry is that guy. Draymond Green would like to be that guy. Klay Thompson can fade away a little bit, but he wants to be very relevant, and he can't be because he's the greatest shooter, I think, in the league right now. I think he's better than Steph Curry. But throughout the postseason, at least he was. But I just don't think you can bring 3 guys on the same team that want to be that guy. That's what happened to the Lakers, and they didn't even make the playoffs that year. They were a complete and utter disaster. So I'm kind of beating a dead horse right now. We've said our case. I think Kevin Durant would be absolutely out of his mind to leave what he has in Oklahoma City right now. So the next question I want to ask Josh, and we can breeze through this because it's not entirely relevant, but the New York Knicks just got Derrick Rose, and that's a fresh start for him. In a big city, which he likes to be in the spotlight, and he's a great player no matter what the injuries. I think he's still a good player. He's obviously not what he was, and he brings a great attitude and a great work ethic. I think that's good enough to succeed in New York. Do you think the Knicks, despite getting rid of one of their big men, with Derrick Rose and Carmelo now, could be relevant and make a push for the playoffs?
I absolutely think they can make the playoffs this year, but that all hinges on Derrick Rose being healthy. And that's kind of been a wild card lately. So, I mean, they're going to need to go out and get another big man most likely. I don't think Kristaps Porzingis is going to be your starting center on that team. I don't know. Maybe you take a look at a guy like Dwight Howard. He's planning on opting out of his deal with the Rockets. You'll probably bring him in for less money, and that'll be a potential bargain right there if he performs anything like he has in the past, not not in Houston. That could be interesting there. They're probably going to need to get some bench players because they basically got rid of their entire bench. I was watching, I think his name's Tom Penn on the ESPN draft coverage the other night, and he was kind of explaining that they have nobody on the bench, so they're going to have to build that. They're going to need another guard in that starting lineup. I don't think Justin Holiday is going to be that guy for the Knicks. He could be a great bench player. He's not going to be in the starting lineup. So they're going to need to go out and get a couple more role players who can get who can kind of provide for Carmelo and for Derrick Rose and for even Kristaps Porzingis. But I think if they do make a good couple moves, I think this team could be relevant because the East is the East, and it's not as strong as the West.
I agree with you 100%, and I think D Rose and Carmelo, I mean, they could click very well, or they could be a complete and utter disaster. I have no idea what to expect. I can't predict that. But I think that what the Knicks have is something, and Phil Jackson had his eye on Derrick Rose for some reason, and he went and got him, and props to him. Phil Jackson could build something good in New York. We'll see what it is, and we'll see how they blend, but I absolutely think they could make the playoffs, and if they do, they've got some star power. They won't take out Cleveland. They won't take out Toronto, but they could make some noise, and they could push a team to 6 games for now, and then they'll build forward with what they've got. But that's just something I wanted to touch on, just because it's something to keep your eye on. They're not contenders in any way, but there's something to keep your eye on. So we're going to move on to our next segment, which is brand new, and props to Josh for 100% coming up with this. I absolutely love it. I think this is going to be great. And we're going to call it the Uninterrupted. And it's basically you pick a topic, whether it's sports, whether it's anything really, except for politics. We're going to stray away from politics on this show. Don't worry. It could be almost anything in the entire world, and just go for 1 minute. And Josh came up with it. Josh is going to have the honors. Josh is going to go, and here it is. Here's our first segment of the Uninterrupted.
Yeah, this is an exciting day here on the Hoosier Life. So I'm sure everybody saw a couple nights ago with the whole Brexit vote and how England is going to leave the European Union. I was kind of shocked by it. I think a lot of people were shocked by it. I think a lot of people would take back their vote and maybe change it if they had the chance, now that they kind of see the repercussions of it, with David Cameron stepping down and just the pound dropping to a 35-year low. But the first thing that came to my mind was, what in the world is going to happen with the English Premier League? Because before, when England was part of the European Union, you didn't need a work permit to play in England, because most of these players are from other countries in the European Union, even from South America. They needed a work permit, but the people in the European Union did not. So now, with them not being part of the European Union, what is going to happen to these 600 plus, and probably even more coming in the future, players that need a work permit now to play in the English Premier League? That would be players like N'Golo Kante, Dimitri Payet, and that's just to name a few. I mean, this could change the entire scope of the English Premier League if these players are not allowed to play, or it's more difficult for them to play in the English Premier League, because they're not coming from big places. These guys are probably just coming from, they probably weren't very rich coming up, and now they're getting their chance to shine, and that could potentially be getting taken away from them. So this is something that will be interesting to watch in the next kind of couple years as the European Union and the UK kind of negotiate a deal for England's exit.
Yeah, and that's something that doesn't just affect soccer in England. Soccer is the most, I'm trying to come up with the term here, international-oriented sport in the world. It's not just relevant in England. Spain, Turkey, France, Italy, the United States, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina. It's enormous everywhere. And soccer players pretty much throughout their whole lives want to play in the BPL. That's what they do. It's the holy grail of professional soccer. And aside from representing your team in the FIFA World Cup, which I still think would be the greatest thing in the entire world, in the world of sports. And that changes the whole landscape of soccer throughout the entire world. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what that would mean or what would change. But, Josh, that's a very, very valid and interesting point. And that's something that I don't think we're going to get an answer for a little while until all this dust settles, which is definitely something to keep your eye on. It's something that will, I think, grow cumulative, and that's definitely something that we're going to watch and track and see what we could come up with. Mine, I touched on it earlier, I'm sorry to bring my Chicago bias into this, but the Chicago Bulls with Jimmy Butler, because this could change both the East and the Western Conference. I mean, and if you're a fan of a team that's trying to go through a rebuild and start a new chapter. So the Bulls got rid of Derrick Rose. You get rid of a former MVP, you get rid of your starting point guard. If he's one of your best players, odds are you're going to go into a full rebuild. And the Bulls are on the record; they want to go into a slight rebuild and revamp this team. You cannot go into a rebuild if you do not get rid of your best player. And your best player, mind you, Jimmy Butler, is a nuisance in the locker room. He is a bad presence for everyone. He doesn't get along with anyone, from Gar Forman and John Paxson, the owner and GM of the Bulls, to Fred Hoiberg, to Pau Gasol. He doesn't get along with anyone. And team, front office, coaching staff, anyone. I love his talent. You don't get me wrong on that. I love his talent, but the Bulls they had an offer on the table for Chris Dunn and Zach LaVine. And you could argue, is that enough, blah, blah, blah. At this point right now, it shouldn't matter if that's enough. Without Derrick Rose in the starting lineup, you're going to be struggling to get 35 wins in the mid-30s. You're not going to make the playoffs. I don't care how good Denzel Valentine is. You are not going to make the playoffs. Go get a rookie in Chris Dunn, who I think could end up being the best player in this draft. He very well could. Go get him. Go get a young guy in Zach LaVine to bring excitement to your team that you've lacked since Derrick Rose was handed to you from the lottery and won MVP. Go get Zach LaVine. Go get Chris Dunn. Get rid of Jimmy Butler. Free up some money. Start your rebuild. You've got Doug McDermott, who's a young talent. You've got Denzel Valentine you just drafted, who the sky is the limit. You could go get Zach LaVine and Chris Dunn, who are both young guys that could just blow themselves out of the water and lead this team in the future. If you go into – and this is a PSA – to all teams out there, if you go into full rebuild, if you are in a position where you need to rebuild your team, get rid of your best guys, because Jimmy Butler is taking money from this team. This team is not going to contend for a title. This team is not going to make the playoffs. They have no business keeping their all-star and their team's best player, who's not even their leader, on the team. It's a waste of time. You're prolonging the process, and you're going to be irrelevant for 2 to 3 years longer. So that's my PSA to the Bulls and any team going through a rebuild. Get rid of your big guns. That's what you got to do. That's what a rebuild is.
All right, I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a minute, but you make a lot of good points. So actually, this is what Tom Crean said on the Vertical the other night. He was fantastic, by the way. I tuned into most of that. He was great. He is an elite player that can guard elite players, and you don't come across those a lot of the time. So, I mean, you make a lot of good points where they probably should get rid of him, but at the same time, this is the Bulls. They're not used to losing, and this is an elite player who plays defense. You don't come across that. You have a guy like Carmelo Anthony doesn't play defense. LeBron James doesn't play a whole lot of defense. Steph Curry doesn't play a whole lot of defense. This guy plays defense, and he can lock down elite players. That's my devil's advocate right there, but I mean, it's an interesting thing that the Bulls are doing right now.
No, and you do bring up a good point. We could go about this back and forth for hours on what they should do, and it's basically, how do you feel on what you could get for him? So we're not going to get into that right now, but there are a lot of ways to look at this. But in the broader picture, if you're going to rebuild a team, it's got to start with getting rid of some of your guys. So that's just what I had to say there. Josh, thank you for coming up with that segment. This is going to be great fun. And I think in the future it could spark some very, very interesting arguments. So maybe we'll have to plan it earlier in the show, going forward, just so if we have time to kind of get into something, we could. But I mean, that basically concludes that for that. So let's get into our what to watch for, and then we're going to get into a fun power ranking segment. Josh, what do you have for our what to watch for?
I mean, baseball's still going on right now. We got some pretty good series actually this weekend. We got the Rangers and the Red Sox. Those are two of the best teams in the AL. The Red Sox have not been playing good baseball as of late, although they did come back last night to beat the Rangers. The Astros and the Royals, that is a rematch of one of last year's ALDS series. And then the Dodgers and the Pirates, a good matchup over there in the NL. Two teams that are kind of struggling now. I guess the Dodgers have a good stranglehold on the NL wild card right now, but the Pirates are below 500, and they're kind of looking for something to go their way. They're coming up to Seattle next week, and the Mariners are not playing that great either, so that'll be an interesting series there. Also, this morning, the Euro knockout stage got started. Poland beat Switzerland in a penalty shootout. Granit Xhaka missed PK for Switzerland. And then just finished up about 10 minutes ago, was Wales beating Northern Ireland off an own goal. So that's kind of my what to watch for. And then also a lot of Copa America. The U.S. plays tonight, and the championship game tomorrow with Argentina and Chile.
And that is going to be an absolute hell of a game. You hit pretty much all my what to watch fors. For the Chicagoland people, the Cubs actually won a game for the first time in about a week last night. So I guess the 4-game skid is over, so they're back. But that Chile, I was at Chile, Colombia at Soldier Field earlier this week, and I don't follow international soccer as close as you do, I'm sure, but Chile is a remarkable team. I think that they've got speed on the outside, and they have a great back line of defense, and Bravo is a fantastic goalie. And I think this matchup with Argentina, if you think Argentina is going to walk away with this, you're wrong. I'm absolutely tuning in. I think it's going to be an absolutely incredible match. Chile and Argentina. Do you know what time that is tomorrow?
5 o'clock Pacific. So I think it's going to start just after 5 o'clock Pacific. So 7 and 8 Central and Eastern time, respectively.
There you go, right there. So tune into that if you're looking for an exciting 90 minutes of soccer. It's going to be absolutely incredible. And then, like you said, baseball is still in, and the European knockout stages is underway. So that's our what to watch for. Josh, you have anything else?
I got one more thing. U.S. and Colombia tonight, a rematch. That's in the third-place game. And I know it's not that exciting. It's still the men's national team, and it's on FX. If you're looking for it, can't find it, it's on FX, kind of a hidden channel there, but it'll be on TV.
And despite it being a third-place game, this is a big day. It's a big moment for United States soccer. If they can beat Colombia, who made some noise in the World Cup, and get third place in Copa America, that means something. If they can do that without Jermaine Jones and Bobby Wood last game, Tim Howard not really playing really at all. That would mean a lot for the United States in terms of soccer and its landscape. So despite it being third place, it's a huge moment and a big opportunity, and it would break down a minor wall in the journey to becoming a world power, which is obviously this country's goal in everything. So big moment tonight for the U.S. in soccer, and we'll definitely be tuned into that. But power rankings time, let's get into it. This week we're doing our top 5 sports rivalries. Josh threw that at me late last night. We couldn't really think of much. Josh was on it yesterday, if you guys couldn't tell, with the Uninterrupted and then this top 5 power ranking segment. I got to pick up the slack and come up with something good next week. So, Josh, you want to alternate this one, or should we go 5 in a row?
No, let's alternate this one. This will be good.
All right, I like it. Okay, I'll start off. I'm trying so hard to not bring Chicago into this, but Bears-Packers is my number 5 in my top 5 sports rivalries. If you live here, you can in the middle of December, you can't help but engage in Bears-Packers. And I know the Bears haven't been relevant for a few years, too many that I'd like to acknowledge, so I'm not even going to give you the specifics there. But the Thanksgiving game this year was a battle. The Bears won in Lambeau. And Aaron Rodgers has owned the Bears, but except for every now and then. And the Packers seem to lose when it matters most. So being from Chicago, you're in the thick of it. There's a lot of Green Bay fans here. There are even more Bears fans. They get into it. It's a very intense rivalry, and it lasts the entire regular season, not just the weekends they play. So it's a great rivalry. If you have the chance to go to a game, I would absolutely do it. Both teams bring it every time they step the field with each other. So Bears-Packers, number 5 for me.
Yeah, that's always a fun one. I love watching in late December, early January with the frozen fields at Soldier Field or in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. That's a great one. My number 5 is going to be the Iron Bowl, Auburn, Alabama. These two teams, when you talk about hate, these two teams hate each other. It's in every sport, but football it's kind of takes the cake for this one. The Iron Bowl is fantastic. If you haven't watched the ESPN 30 for 30 Roll Tide, War Eagle, highly recommend it. Go watch it right after you're done watching this show. Very good. I've watched it multiple times. Love it every time. You got that kick 6 game. You got that Cam Newton comeback. There's just so many great games in this rivalry, and these two teams hit each other. When you're born, you're either an Auburn fan or you're an Alabama fan in the state of Alabama, and it's always fun to watch on the Saturday after Thanksgiving on CBS. Always a fantastic game.
That's my favorite. That's probably one of my top 2 or 3 favorite 30 for 30s right there. Roll Tide, War Eagle. Absolutely fantastic. Excuse me, fantastic. Number 4 for me, I swear this is the last one that has to do with the state of Illinois. Cubs Cardinals, especially now. Especially now. I was at a Cubs Cardinals game, I believe last Monday, and it was jam-packed, absolutely sold out, and it got heated. And these two teams, I mean, if St. Louis doesn't hate the Cubs more than any team I think I've ever seen in any city I've ever seen, then I don't know what it is, because this is a rivalry not just between teams but between cities. I mean, if St. Louis still had a basketball team, this might be the best city-to-city rivalry in sports other than New York and Boston. But that's a great rivalry, and in the past 10, 15 years, it's kind of been dominated by St. Louis. But now it's a different time, and it's definitely, I guess, shell-shocking to the people of St. Louis, and they don't like it, and the Cubs didn't like being on the bottom for so long. But that's an absolutely great rivalry, and if you're in the area, when St. Louis comes to town, or if you're in the St. Louis area when Chicago comes to town, it's a great atmosphere to be in, and the teams really, really hate each other. It's right up there with Yankees-Red Sox.
Yeah, always a fun one. I actually went to one at Wrigley Field about 8 years ago, so a while back, but obviously great rivalry. My number 4, I'm going overseas for this one. I'm going to Spain for El Clasico, Barcelona and Real Madrid. It's always been a good one, but right now is the prime of this rivalry. I mean, you have the two best players in the world, unarguably, with Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. The two best players on the same field twice a season at least when they play in league play. I mean, it doesn't get much better than Real Madrid and Barcelona. It's two class soccer teams that are always fighting for the Champions League, for their own league title. They go back and forth. They hate each other. The fans hate each other. And I had a chance to go to Barcelona and Madrid and talk to some of the people there, and they both say this rivalry is fantastic. They hate each other, and it's everything you love about a rivalry, especially overseas, where it's kind of not showcased too much in the USA, but always great games.
Yeah, and that's a great game, and that always makes great television when it's on, because not only is it a great rivalry, but it's almost always the best soccer you could possibly get. My number 3, and I'm strictly college from here on out. My number 3 is Michigan, Ohio State. We're in Big Ten country. We can't help but feel it. And basketball, that's kind of dwindled away a little bit ever since the Jared Solinger and Evan Turner years. But football, it's right up there, and last year was no exception. This year is going to be absolutely incredible. I think they're back in the shoe. I just can't even believe what Michigan has done to, and even when they weren't relevant, they still gave Ohio State a run for their money in the Brady Hoke years. So Michigan, Ohio State on the gridiron is almost as good a football rivalry as you can get in college football.
No doubt about that. Rivals Alabama, Auburn equally. I think it's about the 1A and 1B right there. But my number 3, I'm going back to baseball. I'm going Yankees, Red Sox. I mean, when you think of a rivalry, this is a rivalry. I mean, it just year in and year out. I know it's not maybe as hated as it was, or as heated as it was in the past when you had A-Rod in his prime, and you had Manny Ramirez, and you had the Pedro Martinez, but it's still Yankees, Red Sox. I've been to one at Yankee Stadium. I've been to one at Fenway Park. Both of them are great atmosphere for a game. There's a bunch of Red Sox fans in Yankee Stadium, a bunch of Yankees fans at Fenway Park. And just the class that these two teams show each other kind of in an interesting way, because when Derek Jeter played his last game, it was at Fenway Park, and they even had
We lost him for a second there.
Teams to show class for each other, and it's fantastic. Great rivalry.
Absolutely, and that's a great point on that Derek Jeter thing. That's just sports for you. I mean, it's just goosebumps pretty much at every turn when you're going in with rivalry games. I left them off my list just because I didn't want to throw two baseball back to back, or kind of debate Cubs Cardinals, because that's where I'm from. So it'd be hard for me to put Yankees Red Sox ahead of them because I haven't experienced it. But my number 2, you already mentioned it, Auburn, Alabama. I've actually been to an Auburn football game twice, and neither time they played Alabama, but both times I've been down there, the team talked about more than Auburn was Alabama. And I mean, I first went down there when I was probably 12, and since then, I mean, I was there for about 48 hours, and I was basically hammered into just hating Alabama and rooting for Auburn. And it was infectious once I went down there, because I grew up 5 minutes from Northwestern. That's, you don't need me to say that that's not a rowdy fan base. So my exposure down there, it kind of transformed me, and I've been rooting for Auburn. They've taken a back seat to my Big Ten boys, but I've been rooting for Auburn ever since, for almost a decade now. And that rivalry is just unbelievable. You can feel the hate when you're in those towns in Tuscaloosa and Auburn, even when those teams aren't even playing. And Roll Tide, War Eagle, you have to watch it so you can get a sense for what this rivalry is like. It's ridiculous. And even when Auburn was bad this year, they gave Derrick Henry and Alabama a run. And the kick six was the greatest college football game I've ever watched. So Auburn, Alabama at my number 2 for football.
Yeah, definitely can't go wrong with that. My number 2, I'm going to the hardwood, Duke, North Carolina. I mean, just when you think of a rivalry, this is what you think of. These two teams separated by, I think it's 8 miles, Tobacco Road showdown. They hate each other. Duke and North Carolina with Grant Hill, and you got Jay Williams, and even Michael Jordan was in this rivalry. When you play college basketball, or when you're playing basketball growing up, you're always saying, I want to play in the Duke North Carolina rivalry. And if you aren't saying that, you probably should, because it's the best rivalry in college basketball. I'm sorry, Indiana, Kentucky. This one takes the cake. It happens 2 times every year. Both stadiums are jammed packed, and it's fantastic basketball. With that Austin Rivers shot a couple years ago, this year with North Carolina winning the ACC, these teams are always at the top level of college basketball, and it's always a great rivalry, especially when Dickie V's in the building.
Absolutely. And you took the words right out of my mouth. That's my number 1. And I won't say too much, but I do want to throw this stat out there because they flash it every year, and every year it's just the most unfathomable thing. So since 1977, between Duke and North Carolina, there have been 87 meetings. In those 87 meetings, UNC is 44-43, so they're separated by 1 game, and Duke has outscored the Tar Heels 6,725 to 6,719. They are separated by 6 points over the span of 87 games. 6 points is what it's come down to. In every single year, it's been close. And the game in North Carolina this year was unbelievable. The game at Duke was almost just as good. And Cameron Indoor, I was there for the IU Duke. It's ridiculous. Those people care so much about their Blue Devils. I can't even imagine what it's like for the Tar Heels to go into Cameron Indoor. And I've seen the Dean Dome. I haven't seen a game there. But for Duke to go in there and win a game, it's got to be the next hardest thing in the world. So that right there, that's college basketball. I think it's the greatest rivalry in sports, especially when both teams are relevant, which is almost every year.
Yeah, no doubt. My number 1, though, is probably going to catch a lot of people off guard. It's a great rivalry, and it's Army-Navy. It does not get any bigger than this in America. It's these 2 schools, they go to battle together, but when it comes to the football game, they hate each other. It's always beat Navy or beat Army, whoever you are. It's a fantastic game. It now has its own weekend. Although right now it's not the best rivalry since Navy has won the last 14. It's the longest streak in the series. It was tied 11 years ago. It was 49-49-7. Now it's 60-49. Navy takes the lead, but this game, just everything behind it. You got the march on the field. Then you sing the alma maters after the game, and it's fantastic. I want Army to finally win one of these games. I have a friend that goes to West Point. I want Army to just win one for him in his 4 years there. But this is a fantastic game. Every time I watch it, I always make this appointment television because it's just that fun to watch. It's always a good game with that triple option. Just an incredible rivalry, Army-Navy.
Absolutely. It's must-watch TV. And Army was so close this year. And I have a great friend, one of the closest family friends of mine at West Point, too. And he's not the biggest sports fan in the world, but, I mean, he hates Navy more than I hate Purdue, more than I hate almost anyone in the sports world. I mean, that rivalry is just ridiculous, and he gives me a sense for what it's like to be at the game. He says it's the coolest thing ever, and just that rivalry is absolutely must-watch TV. But, Josh, you've got some honorable mentions. Let's hear them.
Yeah, I mean, I just got to – I mean, obviously, you said it, Ohio State, Michigan. It didn't make my list, but it's still fantastic. And then I just got to keep one local. You had your local. I got to have my local. The Apple Cup, Washington State. I've gone to these games. I went to Husky football games basically my entire life. Just got to go to the one this past year was over Thanksgiving. I mean, the Apple Cup is great for the state of Washington. There's not many natural rivals up here in the Northwest. I mean, with the Sonics and the Trailblazers, but the Sonics are no more. So now it's just kind of you're scrapping together a rivalry. And this is really the only one that's really still a part of the Northwest. I mean, in baseball, there's no natural rival because Portland doesn't have a team. And I guess the joke is it's Seattle and San Diego, which is not a rivalry whatsoever, but yet they play every year. And some people joke they call it the Vedder Cup because if Eddie Vedder plays for Pearl Jam, he lives in Seattle and San Diego. So it's just a whole joke there. But, I mean, there's no rivalry up here in the Northwest, but it's Washington State, always fun.
No, I'll listen to that. I like that. I think the Apple Cup's great football almost every year. It probably has the best name other than the Egg Bowl, I think, of any. What's with these foods coming up for the rivalry games in college football? But the Egg Bowl, the Apple Cup, no, it is great football, and it was great this year, and Washington State is on the rise.
Yeah, actually, and both teams are on the rise now. Washington potentially is going to be in the top 25 to start the year, but another good name for a bowl or for a rivalry game is in Montana, the Battle of the Wild between Montana State and Montana. I just love that name every time I hear it.
That's pretty good, and that's a good. Montana's got a football game, I feel like, on ESPN every year, and their stadium is breathtaking, and the atmosphere looks absolutely raucous. So I think that this year was against North Dakota State, and I think they won. Don't write me down for that, but now we're just drifting off topic. We're out of time this week, so that's our power ranking segment. If you guys disagree with anything, if you want to add something, if we missed anything, be sure to tweet at us at the Hoosier Life. There's Josh's handle right there. He's at Josh Eastern. My computer's been a little weird today, so I apologize if if we had any technical difficulties. You can't see my Twitter handle at M_Dugan44. I can't speak anymore. That's me. That's Josh. We're at the Hoosier Life. Hopefully we'll get back to you in about a week's time. We'll let you know. Josh has got a pretty busy schedule coming up with work and whatnot, so we're going to figure it out. We're going to get to you guys. We want to get to you guys, so be sure to follow us. Tweet at us if you have any disagreements, any thoughts of anything. IU related, power rankings related, whatever. We'll be there to respond to you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.